Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? Today, it's your boy, BN. We're back. We're going to be talking about Kingdom 314, the OO Sheesh / Squiggly Eyes Alliance, and why it is that the number 2 strongest player, probably number 1 if you're maybe kind of factoring who's running the number 1 account with Satoru on Nefs and probably average spending capabilities, you'd have to assume probably YY is able to do a bit more than that, at least based on reports out there. But at the moment, the number 2 strongest player on a single account has effectively quit the game. Those are the reports that have been coming out as of yesterday. And we're going to share with you some feedback. I had an opportunity to reach out to some of the officers in the Alliance, collected a number of screenshots. We're going to read you some feedback from when this was first announced on the official COD Discord, and just talk about the situation and what it may or may not mean for the game. As always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you throw us out, because I've said a lot. Thanks. Side note as well, I did attempt to reach out to YY on Discord, but I think someone said that he has deleted his Discord. I would have obviously loved to sit down and do an exit interview with him, kind of similar to what we did with Mephisto and Meower and Crazy Bob, at least on Crazy Bob's first retirement, and then he came back. You know, it's getting a little monotonous now. It's like, decide, man. You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. Figure it out. Anyways, if something comes up, obviously we'd love to do a sit down. However, with that being said, let's show you where we're at. So at the moment, apparently the 2 accounts here are in an alliance called Over the End. It's actually kind of hilarious, just the fact that like he took the time. He had to like really do that. You know what I mean? Like you had to think about, okay, I'm not going to play anymore. I need to just move this account out of this alliance, go into another alliance. I need to name this alliance so people know that I'm done playing. And then I had to go and name my account Dead Game, rest in peace, when we all know for a fact the game isn't dead. But it's just the fact that you had to think about that. And then they say play Crystal Atlan. What is that? Crystal Atlan. I don't know what this is. Play Crystal Atlan on PC. Amazing action RPG. You don't want to miss out. Magic Punk MMO action RPG. Okay. It's got a 4.4 out of 5 on Google Play, 3.6 out of 5 on Facebook. I don't really know how much those ratings are valued. It's on Steam. Okay. Sure. I have no idea what that is. However, with all that aside, and again, for those of you who are wondering, oh, well, is this really his account? Yes, it is, right? 873 mil for historical highest. Right, if we look at this one, 652, right? This is kind of similar to his first and second main accounts, at least here in 314. And just to kind of give a little bit of a history lesson here on YY, right? These are top player stats for the top 25 series that I do for the last time we pulled in April. I would have done one this month for July. However, Fuzzy Gabe got me a good scan, I think on the 6th or 9th of July, but I was so focused on getting all the data inputted for the KVK groups that were going into War of the Last Snows. So that's kind of where all my focus and attention went. And as most of you know, I don't really like to do the top 25 series with stats that are at least that could be viewed as a little outdated, right? So if it's something that's kind of more than a week old, I'd like to try and get something as fresh as possible. So whenever I do get another scan, we will be continuing that. However, YY here you could see next to Satoru, right? Second strongest player in the game off of a single account. Now, YY first broke on the scene back in April, you could see here, of 2024. At least the first time that we heard about the account YY at this time. So that's, a year and 3 months, if you count up to date, for when we started hearing about YY, and then how long the name has really made an impact on the game right, in whatever way you may consider, but has been a prominent and popularized player from the list, and I'm sure from other fights and actions and engagements, they're out on the battlefield earning his own accolades. And so from there, you look and see that, okay, well, there's a little bit of an established history. YY's clearly been playing for a while, strong player, heavy spender. But then we get to the situation of, okay, he's not / no longer playing. He decides to quit. Why did this happen? Okay, let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit. So this was a screenshot that I found these on the official COD Discord as well. This is from one of the R4s, Elaine. Says, I don't know who this is, but someone asks, is YY is not playing. His account all got deleted troops. Was it the pilot doing it? Elaine says, no, YY deleted his own troops. He was not playing. He didn't feel it was worth to keep the powerful accounts going, hindering the kingdom. This is interesting because, one, I at least had not heard of this being a thing that was spoken about, at least in public settings that I have seen, or that someone may have brought it to my attention on. Because I hear a lot of stuff. And I always appreciate when people reach out to me about anything, right? No matter how small, medium, or big sized they may feel it is, I always enjoy hearing, right? Knowledge is power, as they say. And so I always appreciate when, some whispers come your boy's way. But this was something that I had never really heard that maybe had made it to kind of a wider range or birth of ears. Now, there's always been some conversation around Mephisto's account and how big it is, and how, some people say, well, I'd rather have, 10 150 million accounts or 9 150 million accounts versus having one just massively big account. And again, I see where they're going with that. I can understand the value in that. And however, I think the one thing that I've heard from people that when Neff was playing, that when Neff played, or whether or not he was piloted, the fact is a lot of people say that Neff fought, right? That Neff was really out there on the battlefield, right? He didn't care about dead troops, didn't care about, losing troops to go out there and fight for the greater good, right? Of winning the KVK, of winning the zone. And that's not to say that YY did or did not have a similar view. I have only ever heard reports from, again, my limited scope of what I have heard over the time that YY has played, is that he's a fighter. He goes out and fights. I really haven't heard anything from, I would argue, direct sources that I know of that had played with YY for a while and said, oh no, this absolutely was not the case. The man never went out and fought. He was only ever piloted, right? Now, I never heard anything to that extent. So again, I'm only going to speak to what I have heard and or what I may know. So let's get to the next one. So now we get to, okay, it was his own account and investment. The man can do whatever he wants. You guys could have benefited from the troops, though. What about puppets? And then Elaine says, okay, have a good KVK. Now, this is true in that sense, right? So if we go, as an example here, and we look at Satoru, right, who is, again, as pretty much everyone more or less knows at this point, right, because Mephisto said this in the exit interview that I did with him, that he gave Satoru his account. So if I was, for example, to go in game and we were to look at just as a visual aid, if we look at Satoru's account, oh, interesting, he's not in an alliance right now. Wonder if there's something there happening there. Ooh, maybe someone should let me know. Point being is that Satoru still is, again, right, 1.24 billion, almost back up to peak power. However, the thing about it is that, right, Neff just didn't let the account kind of go to waste, if you will, right? Was kind, generous enough to give it to someone so it could be utilized, and all that investment wasn't wasted. On the other hand, that clearly was not the case here with YY. YY opted to say, deuces, YOLO Brick Squad 420, and I'm just gonna delete all my, that is crazy. It's crazy to me in the sense of, and I should say coming from the perspective, not necessarily that he decided himself to lead the troops, but it's more about, like, for me, the why on and the impact, the result of that. You invested so much money into those accounts to uh to have them be at the state and level they are at. And which, again, this person makes a good point, right? You guys could have benefited from it, right? Like, again, regardless if it's a Toro or someone else playing on Neff's account or any other big account, you're still able to utilize that investment. So, you kind of look at it from two ways. It's like, okay, you had two accounts, right? That could have been utilized if YY wanted to give it to someone, right? So there's kind of two angles here. The first one is, okay, he could have. He opted not to give his accounts to anyone. To me, I guess there's two lines of thinking on that point. One, did YY not trust anyone enough, and or maybe was friendly enough with anyone in the kingdom to feel that he could have given his two accounts to other people playing there and let them just kind of do with it what they will, but just so the investment isn't lost? The other side of it is, again, it's his investment. He can do with the accounts, obviously, however he pleases. And if he wants to zero them out and not give them to anyone, that's his prerogative. But it does make me wonder on, is it, and again, we're going to get into some of these things too as well, some things that were said. Could he have also done it just as a giant FU to the kingdom, right? Even if it may not have been a giant FU to everyone there in 314 and in the Alliance, could it have been a giant FU to the people who maybe said things about YY within the kingdom? And we'll get to that in a moment too as well, because I also think there's a little bit of a connection story there. So let's look at how the Diplo is going currently. So this was taken for us, a screenshot shared with me from Princess's stream. And again, I'll have a link to that in case you guys want to follow up with that in the description. But this was from Dark. Dark posted something in the Discord, our kingdom announcements here, saying, unfortunately, YY quit the game, deleted troops, hostage held OO main shells, and deleted their Discord. That's pretty freaking wild. As your leader is like to think, my come on, Dark, come on. My responsibility to try and make the KVK as entertaining as possible. And as the number one team in the KVK, I would like to lead by example. I am super impressed by this team, and I want to test our limits. I'm considering taking AS into a 1v all or swapping allies to OO over A2G. Of course, I have to speak to our allies to see what they agree to. But if I make EIS fight an FFA, will you all go in with me? I am not ready to give up on this KVK. I say we all go in, test our limits for Dragon. Unlike these other Diplo win teams, I believe in EIS, and a 1v all will put everything on the line for us. Do you want this too? Okay, now obviously it didn't show any results on the screenshot, but this leans into a little bit more of what we had heard and what was being discussed on the official COD Discord once the YY news dropped. Now, if this is true, and obviously if it's coming from Dark, again, because they're in the KVK, I'd like to, and also because I've heard some of this already from other people on the Discord, to me it kind of leans in that way. But again, I haven't got any of this hard confirmed from anyone that was a part of the Discord, the shells, right? I didn't really ask any of the management officers any of these particular questions, but right. So if you need to, you can take that with a grain of salt. So hostage held the OO main shells. Again, if that's true, deleted their Discord. If that's true, it almost makes me wonder what frame of mind was he in, and why is it that he decided at this time that he was going to drop the hammer? Like, what pushed him? And for me, that's more of the interesting part, is psychologically, where was he coming from? What happened? What built up to him deciding, okay, this is the time where I'm just going to say screw it? In my experience, this usually comes from in most of the time, at least in these games, something internally. That, or maybe, yeah, this is just the time you need to exit, right? Maybe you're having some external kind of IRL things you have to handle or pressure from there. But oftentimes it is usually from internal strife, internal drama, stuff that internal politics, things that is happening within your kingdom, within your alliance, and or within your management team if you are a part of management. And that, to me, is more of the interesting story. And so I wonder if we'll get to that here in a bit, which we might. Now, the next part here that we'll talk about is another screenshot that was taken from, I believe, Princess had done a post about this, right? And again, I'll have a link to this post as well. So saying KVK update, Dark put out an announcement, A2G, FA, SHPZ, ES all agreed to swap Diplo for the better of the KVK. OOR4 told me they will no longer play the KVK serious and they will be neutral. Come on, Dark. And we could 2v1 NA camp, NA2G camp. We set all chats up, etc. Then NA tells us OOR5, in this case puppets, assuming, said they will still play the KVK and it continues as normal. We offered NA both rocks in zone 2 for end of season rewards when we went dragon and both hydras in their zone for end of season rewards to make sure it was in everyone's best interest to change the Diplo. Instead, NA claims OO is still fighting and wants to continue the KVK. NA rejected and said they will continue the KVK as normal and OO will continue fighting according to NA. So KVK continues as normal for now. Your bestest friend, a sexy idol, the Supreme Leader Dark. Okay. Part of me wants to just kind of, if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. People talked about how if Nephisto stopped playing his account in multiple KVK seasons and it just became a dead account, how that would have had a pretty big impact. And so I wonder if this means that did they just still feel super strong about the matchup and it's okay, this is not, like YY isn't the same as Nephisto? Is there a little, because to me, I just feel as though you have two main accounts. Your situation, for all intensive purposes, is arguably better than the Nephisto situation because you have two accounts combined at a little bit more power than Nephisto, sure, but you have two accounts up to 10 marches that you can utilize versus the one account and 5 marches on a Nephisto account. And you lose that along with any other potential, because this is the thing. When you lose a big presence like that, especially if it is someone who is willing to lose troops, to incur deads, to go out there and doesn't mind a big hospital bill, and they have a heavy or high average spending during a KVK season, to say that, and this isn't maybe them saying that, okay, that doesn't matter to us, we're still going to continue fighting, but part of me just feels like that feels like a little more of a loss than if the Nephisto account was lost and dead in the water, right? And I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. So for them to continue playing, right, I guess maybe they know something internally we don't, right? I think one way of looking at it is, okay, how often was YY participating in this specific KVK? That, right, we're the only major zone we've seen so far from the G2 pool, right? Because he's in the G2 pool for War of the Last Snows, between, right, that 7,009, 7,018 in that AB group. I think there's 7,011. And so was he just not participating that much? And they feel that, okay, well, it doesn't really matter because he wasn't playing that much, or really wasn't on the field that much, and didn't really sacrifice a lot of troops, and we were kind of in the same situation. So, having those two accounts being dead in the water doesn't really change anything. Like maybe that's their approach. Maybe that's their perspective. Or maybe there's just something else, right? Maybe they got something else kind of up the sleeve. Maybe more people are going to come out and be willing to fight now, right? That he's kind of like martyred himself, so to speak. I don't know. Again, it will be fascinating to see what happens, because if this is true and they're opting to continue playing it the way it is, then yeah, we'll see. All right. Last part, or I guess maybe second to last part I want to get to here is going to be some things that were said on the Discord. So, and then I'm going to read you some feedback I got from the actual management team there as well. So, right. So someone pinged me, right? Someone had posted this. It was yesterday afternoon, right? So it's been about 26 hours or so. Someone said, bro deleted both his accounts. What did they say here? Right? Why not 100 mil player? Just hitting to mention the topic. Classy Tim. That's crazy. Deserve for being a Kraken takes the response. We made a billionaire rage quit. Sorry for your loss, or happy for you. Wait, what? He already left the game 2 seasons ago. Okay, so like some people saying some some stuff there. Okay. Didn't YY promise Dragon tickets for artifacts if you were top performer in KVK? Now he actually quit officially. Damn, that's crazy. Sorry for your loss. We know that it's not even that much. I remember I saw an alliance board. The good news. Time to get down to recruitment. Oh, it's rough, man. Like people think that 314 is having a fire sale, and maybe we'll touch on that in a moment. After 3 hours ahead of you, time to get down to recruitment. I'm just already 3 hours ahead of you. Jeez. And I wonder if people have, like, since the news broke yesterday, I wonder if people have already been reaching out to players in 314 asking if they're planning to migrate out or move, especially because for any of those players, they might have got some tickets, not only refunded, but gained, especially from the recent migration changes, right? Making it easier. So some people saying, where is it? Oh, dude, max moon pair on both, everything max. He's like Crystal Atlan then. Oh, is that? Oh, that must have been he's like, okay, I get it. What was this? Law, I told you all. Yukin says, what? I know when he refused to fight me for Dragon because he didn't want to spend Arceus to heal. Little broke boy maxed his credit cards. If I maxed mine too, I could have been bigger than YY, but I wasn't a noob like him. Just add him to the list of people I've defeated who crossed me, all of them. Wait, what? YY gonna tier. That's a smallest success. Boom, one of the top 3 coolest people. Oh, never mind, something else. Quit the game T4 units. It's so hard where y'all hate on Boo because he actually got with the real girls. Wait, what? Oh, my bad. I was reading. It went too high. It went too high up. But hang on. So there was another thing though that I want to read this one on, which was I had asked some people, well, hey, what was the reason? Like, does anyone know why he left? So Kelly here says some people say he did it because his Bastion was burned for the first time. Others say he just lost interest in the game as he wasn't really playing it for the last 2 seasons. And then Boss's bruh, no one said it was because of his Bastion, because the second part was officially announced at start of the season and Sheesh Discord server and game inline. So now I have many info groups names. That's what I thought. You're talking about the ORM Bastion yesterday. Yes. Never thought I would see. We swarmed when they were away. They healed to 70%. Wasn't a big deal. Who knows? It's the first time YY Bastion getting burned. And let me see. I think they had something else. He deleted all his troops. Oh, here was one. So Global says he deleted troops because his alliance complained about his account sizes ruining matchmaking. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm going to read you now some feedback that I was given from a few people from the management staff of the 314 Discord, right? So I had reached out to some of the officers here that are a part of OO, and I'm just going to read you some of the responses, right? Again, not going to name any names, but I just want to read this and we can talk about it. So someone stated YY felt the game was getting boring. Okay, so from what we've heard, okay, that was one thing that seems spot on based on what others have stated. Number 2, he got annoyed because people were not happy with how much power he had and how valuable it was for our kingdom. So that kind of goes into the matchmaking inflation comment that we just saw. Okay. And then the third part is I asked about the future. So response I got was, we're facing enemies stronger than us, doing our best, not giving up on the season yet. And we have plans for future seasons that I can't talk about at the moment. So that was the feedback that I was given from some of the officers a part of the alliance. What I will say is that it sucks. I think anytime someone leaves that has been that impactful and that meaningful for a kingdom, and I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination to say that YY wasn't that for 314. The second part about, or I guess the part about the kind of the game getting boring, that's something I would really like to sit down and kind of have a conversation with. Like, it was great to sit down with Neff and really just kind of have this open-ended exit interview where it was kind of like a no holds bar, and we really were able to dive into quite a lot just to hear, like, where's YY coming from? You know, is it something specific about the game? I'm sure the devs would love to hear some feedback on that too as well. And when you're in a voice call, it just makes it easier to really kind of strip away what is just on the top layer and kind of get into the nitty gritty. And then I guess the third part here is on people saying that he got annoyed, right, with some people saying how much power he had, how it inflated the matchmaking. I mean, to be fair, if it wasn't YY's accounts, it could have been whoever the next top person was. You know, people could have claimed that the top 3 or 5 people are just too strong, right? So I mean, you know, you could probably get that from you know, anyone if they really wanted to kind of make some kind of a complaint about something. However, yes, I understand that these 2 accounts totaled for more than Neff's account that were in the same kingdom. I don't know if Neff ended up having more than 1 account that was in the kingdom. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I just wasn't aware of it. And so, you know, you're looking at about 1.5 billion power combined versus, you know, about a little less than 1.3 billion on Neff's account. I mean, both of those accounts, you know, are inflating the matchmaking to a degree. But, you know, are you really going to stop that at that point? Like, how do you necessarily, I mean, the only way you could really combat that is you would just tell them to delete a bunch of troops and just kind of try and stay capped out at a certain power tier or threshold. But I don't really know anyone that is like that heavy spending at that level that, you know, is doing that. Now, if there are some people out there, that would actually be a very interesting conversation to have as well, and I'd love to hear. So let me know in the comments. However, I almost wonder how long that had been going on for, and if so, was that maybe a tipping point for YY because players and or maybe people from the management staff were complaining about that? Was it something that they complained about privately and YY didn't know about it? And then maybe all of a sudden it just leaked out recently and he just heard about it. And that maybe was a cause for why the kind of abrupt, impulsive leaving in the way he did. And maybe like the management team was like trying to keep a lid on it, so to speak. Okay, maybe. Did he know about it for a while and it was just kind of like a slow boil and a slow buildup? I mean, I guess that part kind of sucks in a way, because it's just kind of like a double-edged sword, right? It's like on one end, you have a very big, 2 big accounts that can be incredibly impactful in a KVK. And at the same time, some people, however many, felt that the accounts were impacting their KVK too much. Okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, I kind of look at this as pretty simple. YY has been in 314 since day one. This is actually the part where I would actually come to in the defense of YY in saying that he's been a day one person from my understanding in 314. And if people are complaining about him pushing power and being that strong, then my response is, dude, GTFO. Like, get the F out. Migrate. Move it, Skippy. Be gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, to me, it's that easy. And then on top of that, why would people be migrating there if you're that worried about it? Like, why are you as a management team? And again, I'm just going down this line of thinking if that is the case. Then yeah, like my thing would be like, okay, we'll just move on, right? If you're a management team, just order a mass migration somewhere. Don't let YY come and let him join somewhere else. Like, I'm sure there would be other places that would gladly have taken both of YY's accounts and not complained about it. Doesn't necessarily mean that every place his accounts would be welcome. But to say that absolutely, and I'm not saying they are, but in general, I think that it's wild to think that absolutely no one would be willing to take those two accounts. That's like saying no one was willing to take NAF. Like, no, there was plenty of people willing to take NAF, right? I mean, again, the account. I think the account's migrated twice already, right? And kind of like two main ones. So, like, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit more on YY's side there, where it's like that's not really, if that's true, that's not really on him. That's on you and the people who are complaining and the kingdom to make a decision on. You're either going to commit to your guy and have your guys back, or you're going to order and organize some mass migration somewhere else, and or to split the kingdom, or have different management run things. And then maybe that gets me to, like, now that I'm really talking it out loud, that kind of gets me to like a second underlying story possibly here, which is, did the management team have YY's back? Because I view it as like, okay, if the management team had YY's back, then they would just address the bad actors, the complainers, and make a public statement on like, yo, we're standing on business. We got our boys back. This is how it is. If you don't want to be here, right, go ahead and migrate out, right? Obviously, we'll help in some way we can. But at the same time, if that becomes something where enough people are complaining about it, then maybe you need to also have that be a disclaimer before people migrate in. Because to me, nothing is worse than like when people migrate into a kingdom, they know who's there, they kind of know what they're signing up for, and then they complain about things after the fact when they already knew what the expectations were prior to joining. Especially in the areas that they probably are then complaining about. Nothing screams hypocrisy more to me, and just ignorance. And so it is, I think it's absolutely hilarious when things like that happen. So, like I said, I think I really do think there's so much to unpack here. That for me is kind of everything that I wanted to talk about and cover today. I'd love to hear what you guys think on the situation, right? I'm sure for many, YY will be missed. I'm sure for the few, they're happy he's gone. I, for one, would just, love, like I said, to have a conversation because I just think it would be very intriguing and very interesting to kind of hear a perspective from someone at kind of an Ophisto level, if you will, on what their thoughts were kind of coming to the end of their time playing the game. What led to it? What was the buildup look like? What would you have changed about the game? What would you like to see done different? And I just think having those conversations can be incredibly educational and very rewarding. So that's it for me. If anyone out there has more insight, please let us know in the comments below. This is a wild one. And I feel like this is going to be talked about for a while as well, because of the way that it was exited and how almost polar opposite it was versus how Neff exited. So yeah, that's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch y'all later.